Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofrumento, and I am so very excited for all of you to meet today's guest and fellow entrepreneur because it is so clear to me that this is somebody who loves the work that she does. And the other thing I really love about her story that I know is going to resonate with so many of you is that she did a complete 180 with her career. She actually went from litigation consulting to interior design. If you want to hear that backstory, well, then you're absolutely going to love her. Her name is Taylor Lewis-Costa. Taylor is the founder and lead designer of TLC Home, which is disrupting the interior design world by doing the look for less. That's going to factor so much into our conversation today. Taylor is a passionate designer based in Charlotte, North Carolina, with a lifelong captivation for creating elevated spaces. Taylor understands the challenge of achieving luxurious aesthetics on a budget, and that's why her mission is to empower others to realize their champagne dreams without overspending. Committed to helping her clients transform their visions into reality, Taylor approaches each project with creativity and a focus on delivering value. All of these themes are important in all of our businesses and all of our life journeys. So Taylor brings so much passion and incredible energy to the table, and I'm so excited to hear the way that she thinks, not only as an interior designer, but also as one of us, as a fellow entrepreneur. So I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Taylor Lewis-Costa. All right, Taylor, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Hello, Brian. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Heck yeah. So I'm excited to hear your story. It's such a cool shift, and obviously You're doing incredible work with your company these days. So take us beyond the bio. Who is Taylor? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Sure. Well, Brian, it is interesting now when I look at the path of my life. It all kind of makes sense in the end, but it certainly didn't necessarily feel that way. So I was born and raised in Orlando, Florida. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad started a construction company with, no formal training, education, and was able to retire at 51. So that continues to be an inspiration for me. And frankly, my mom was always redecorating our house, always. That was our summer project. I didn't go to summer camp. It was this summer we're going to redo the living room, and that's what we'd go out and do during the day. However, I decided I really wanted to go out of state for college, and I was really interested in internships. So it was really important to me to find a school that had an emphasis on work preparation, if you will, which is not what most are looking for in a university, but I was. And so I wound up going to the George Washington University in DC because all the students I chatted with were raving about their internships at different places, and studied business and economics. I knew I wanted to study business. It felt like a smart path forward with a wide array of options, and ultimately found a niche consulting firm, and it was wonderful. It was really challenging work. I loved that I worked with really bright people, and frankly, it was a job people didn't quite understand when I explained it to them. But after a few years of doing that, I really knew it wasn't necessarily filling my cup. It was a demanding scope of work, and for a long while, I enjoyed that. It was very Excel heavy, but I also knew I wanted to be a little bit more people-facing. And ultimately, I knew I wanted something that was going to better align with a young family. I knew my husband and I were headed down that direction. I was really fortunate to find a designer here in Charlotte willing to take a chance on me. She had a job posting, and I applied in addition to messaging her on LinkedIn. I was like, hey, I'm completely underqualified for this job, based on the specifications, but I do have a knack for design, and I'm a fast learner. I'm motivated. I would love to meet with you. She fortunately bit, if you will. And when we met, it ended up being sort of a match made in heaven, that she was like, I really need help running the business side. And I was like, I know a lot about that. Please teach me what you know about design. And so we worked together. It was again a great partnership. And then it sort of happened by accident that TLC Home was formed. After a while, I started to have friends say, "Hey, can we hire you? We've seen your house." And I was like, "Sure." And I'll be honest, in working with an interior design firm, I saw how much of the interior design world was geared towards the 1% of the 1%. And that didn't necessarily get me jazzed. These are beautiful spaces that wind up in architectural digests, and they are where the Jeff Bezos of the world live. That's wonderful. I also acknowledged I had a beautiful home that was comprised of $300 rugs and canvases from Home Goods, like the one you see behind me. And I knew people wanted that. I have dogs. I wanted to feel like furniture could be replaced and it wouldn't leave my bank account empty to do so. So those are really how I formed the tenets of TLC Home that we can delve into a little bit more. But I think that's really the overview.
Yeah, I so love that overview for so many reasons, Taylor, especially because I feel like you really tied in your love for internships and how much that was a motivation. But then when I hear about your interior design career, what I actually hear is also an apprenticeship. It sounds like a modern day apprenticeship that a lot of people, they don't view that as a viable path into an entirely new industry. So huge kudos to you, because obviously it changed your life and it led to the founding of your own business. Talk to us about that path, because when people tune into podcast episodes, I'm fully aware of this as a podcast host myself, is that it always sounds like, oh, it was just an easy path. Taylor saw that opportunity, she dove into it, one thing leads to another. Of course, you had a lot of questions, and I'm sure a lot of self-doubt came into it, especially when you decided to start TLC Home. You mentioned your friends saying, Taylor, can you help us? I'm sure there was a bit of imposter syndrome, some mental questioning. Talk to us about those things that actually led to you resoundingly. It sounds like you're someone who gets on board when you know something's a good idea, but talk to us about those thoughts that you were having that led to you saying, you know what, I am going to do this. TLC Home is going to be born.
Yeah. So no, I would say initially with my apprenticeship, I hadn't previously thought of it that way, but that's a perfect description. It was I was fortunate too to always have the attitude, and I thank my parents for that, of just go for it. I play the worst case scenarios in my mind. I was like, the worst case scenario is I apply for this job and send this woman a private message and don't hear back. Best case scenario is I get to make a pivot. I would say on that too, it was a part-time gig at a compensation level that was far lower than what I was used to. And so that required some finesse too, of doing some other part-time work to make it all make sense. Then I want to say, when it came into TLC Home, some of that same attitude applied of, worst case scenario, I get no customers. Best case scenario, I get a full book of business and I get to live out the dream I had when I was 7 years old. So no, frankly, I'll have a level of imposter syndrome every single day of like, gosh, I really didn't have formal education in this. But I'd say that's something I'm really transparent with my clients about. And I think it's a message that resonates with them. Almost every introductory meeting that I have with clients honestly starts a little bit like my extended bio when I tell them a little bit about me, that my goals are to spend their money as if it were my own and create their dream space. I can do that. But no, I don't know necessarily all the, advanced interior design softwares, but that's also how I stay at a much more affordable rate than other designers out there. So I think it's something to just kind of continue going for it. And I'm someone, again, I play those worst case scenarios in my mind over and over again. And I'm always comforted by that, because rarely are the stakes that high or that scary that you wouldn't be able to turn back from it. And usually the best case scenario is what you're hoping for, and you may surprise yourself.
Yeah, so well said, Taylor. It always reminds me, you use the word underqualified, and I'm actually going to pick on that as a positive trait of you. You called out that it makes you affordable there. Obviously, you're certainly not underqualified in the things that you do, but it's that mindset of acknowledging that we're all underqualified in our own ways while also accepting. It's one of the most important entrepreneurial truths that I've learned, which is there is no such thing as qualification. You just need to be one chapter ahead of everybody else. If you're one chapter ahead of somebody, like Taylor, I don't know how good or bad you are at tennis, but I'm willing to bet that I could probably teach you something about your forehand, unless you're secretly an amazing tennis player. Then I take that.
I am not.
Okay,
and
perfect.
I'm sure you would teach me something.
Perfect. So that's an illustration. I don't have to be Roger Federer. I don't have to be the best tennis player in the world. And I think that that's such an important piece of acceptance for us all as entrepreneurs, as innovators, as business leaders. So huge kudos to you. I want to follow down that path though, because I feel like everybody has one or two or three things that people in their just personal life will turn to and say, Taylor, you have a knack for design. Like, please help me design my house. I think there's an initiative that separates entrepreneurs from the rest of people, Taylor, that you heard that request enough times from your inner circle, and then you actually took action on it, which that gap meant that you had to figure out pricing, you had to figure out service bundles, you had to figure out how to make all those things happen. Paint the picture of that bridge for us, because most people hear that, but they don't view it as that trigger to take action.
Yeah, Brian, I would say it was something, again, where as life was happening, the connected puzzle pieces didn't quite make sense until they did. So I want to pull on my consulting experience where we were doing in-depth expert reports, being able to kind of fine-tune things with a legal eye. So that was uniquely helpful in creating my agreements. We also did a lot of billing discussions with clients, which also helped me to feel much more comfortable with my value proposition and being able to explain to clients or prospective clients, why fees are justified. And then really that apprenticeship of working in an interior design firm helped me leverage much more of what does this look like. To that point, Brian, something that I've continued to use as a guiding principle of TLC Home, and I encourage other entrepreneurs out there to think about, is really put yourself in the seat of your ideal clients. And I always think through what I would like to see, feel as a part of that experience. That was one of the key principles for me in not doing an hourly model. From things that I had seen in my experience, I don't necessarily, if I were a client of my business, I don't want to feel like, oh, am I getting charged for sending this, image while I'm shopping at Home Goods? And so I wanted to do, fixed pricing models for that reason. Yes, it means that I bear a level of risk as the business owner on that, but that was important to me. And to get appropriate buy-in from clients, there's a lot that goes into that. But I'd say more than anything, it was putting myself in my ideal client's shoes, because I'm the kind of client that I want to serve. And what did that look like? And so it meant a short and concise engagement letter, doing market research on rates and kind of factoring that in. And I'd say a big thing that I didn't ever think was going to be relevant was learning how to, estimate my time. That was something that really ultimately my consulting work was immensely helpful in being able to say, yep, this is how long I think something will take me, and factor that into proposals. So that was an odd tangent, but hopefully answers the question there, Brian.
Yeah, super valuable. I'd say, you're demystifying one of the things we hear from listeners all the time about how the heck do we price ourselves? And I love the intentionality that you've put into the way that you operate. But so much of it, what I'm really hearing is it stems from the fact that you are your own ideal customer. And I will transparently tell you, Taylor, that part of what really appeals to me about your business is your positioning in the marketplace. You called out so early on in our conversation today about this is from Home Goods behind me. And that's a point of pride for you. And Taylor, I once heard, I fully know where I land in these two buckets. I once heard that there's two types of people in this world. There's the type of person who brags about how expensive something is for that prestige, or there's the type of person like me, and it sounds like you, that brags about how much of a deal that they got, how inexpensive something is. I'm totally in that second bucket, Taylor. And so for me, that speaks volumes. And I want to hear more about that market positioning, because a lot of people feel like interior design services are for the super rich. We've all seen on TV, you called out, the Jeff Bezoses of the world. Talk to us about that very intentional market positioning, though.
Absolutely. Well, this all goes way back for me. I am an only granddaughter to my now late grandmother, and we were bargain hunters. She loved to shop and taught me how to find a bargain, and it was always something I found exhilarating. I am guilty of being the shopper. It's not how much I spent, it's how much I saved. Something that I say to my friends, clients, everyone in between: what is sexier than saving money? I think it is a very bizarre reality to feel like it's any level of kudos to spend more money than you have to. So I want to say it's something too that really resonates with my clients for that reason. I cannot tell you how many people I've met and talked to about my business model. They're like, I didn't think I could afford an interior designer. Again, to my idea of being, I'm my ideal client. How do I target that? Is that my goal is that for anyone that has the luxury of furnishing a home, that's of course, it goes without saying, that is still a luxury, they can afford my services. A key way that I do that, and is kind of a differentiator for me in the market, is that I learned in working under an interior designer of this kind of preferred pricing model that exists. As someone that has a design LLC, I can get preferred pricing at 95% of the vendors out there. Now, from a business perspective, making on that differential between, a suggested retail price and a discounted price is really smart. And that's what a lot of designers that I know of do. And I get it. It's revenue generating. I see the numbers. I get it. I, however, for the person that I am, never wanted to have that perverse incentive to say, yes, I think that this, $2,000 rug is really what your home needs, when I know we can get what you want on Wayfair for $300 or $400. And so I wanted to have that price transparency. And I see that that's something that really resonates with my market. Yes, it does generate less revenue for my business. I have thought through that and know those numbers, but for my integrity and, sleeping well at night, that's something that my goal is to pass along those savings. And that covers a large portion of my fee, if not exceeds it, depending upon where we source from. And I think that makes it an easy call for people to have an expert come in, ensure a space is well dimensioned, beautifully designed, and handle the logistics. It feels like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, and to that point, it's also a much bigger market, is that you have so many more people that you can more deeply serve, and they probably appreciate it a little bit more, Taylor. I'm going to throw that in there, but that's for sure a little bit of a personal bias. When it comes to that, though, I do think about your industry's more macro landscape. You and I both studied economics in school, and when I think about those macroeconomic conditions, a lot of people probably disqualify themselves from ever even reaching out to you and ever even having the conversation to you, just because they're making assumptions about what your industry costs and what it looks like and how it works and who it's for. How do you get over those probably self-disqualifications? Are these conversations that you're initiating and you're opening their eyes saying, hey, no, it is attainable for you? Or are they coming towards you? I'd love to hear behind the scenes of those conversations.
Yeah, Brian, I would say a bit of it at the Kickstart was working on some level of SEO, configuring my website to have, keywords like affordable in there. And then I would say once I'm having the conversations with people, of being very direct about pricing and how it works. I feel like I have met with a number of contractors, trades, and I never like when someone is giving me a gray area of pricing and not necessarily laying out real numbers. Now, yes, you have lots of caveats. That's things I think of and pull on from my consulting experience of, footnote, this is under these assumptions, things like that. But really laying it out for people and saying, yes, this is what a quality sectional will cost. Now, at this vendor, I'm able to get you a 20% discount, which can be significant. However, we may be able to go to this vendor and get it for half the price. I might not have a discount there, but you're getting the sectional that aligns with your priorities and your budget. So I think it really boils down to willing to kind of dig deeper in conversations too with people that I meet, and just leaning into that niche, meaning sometimes that affordability tag, they're not always the best of prospects to other entrepreneurs out there, but it's still being that push that allows someone to kind of open the door to the conversation.
Yeah, Taylor, I'm excited to ask you this next question because I would imagine it's a fair bit of the work that you do with your clients, and that is managing expectations. When we're talking about champagne dreams, a lot of people, we all want things. We all want, things that are probably a little bit beyond our means, and we all probably think that our means go much further than they do. So obviously it's people like you that manage those expectations and help us find the right solutions for our budgets, for our constraints, for our spaces. That's yet another constraint that people are dealing with. What does that look like to manage those expectations? Because I can tell in your energy that it probably seems like you're our friend throughout the process, even though sometimes you have to tell us things that we probably don't want to hear. How the heck do you manage those with your clients?
They're fun conversations. I would say it ends up being, a prolonged conversation where when we are even before being engaged, we're talking about priorities. I have some clients that are a little bit more elderly, therefore having, furniture come into their home, assembled, delivered, all of those things are important to them. And I explain that that is going to yield a higher price tag. I also have clients that have come to me and say, hey, we know we're only going to be in this house 5 years. We have 3 young children. We want furniture to be destructible, and the next house will care more. And so, we start by dissecting some of those pieces. And then as we get to the actual products that we're presenting, I'll usually strive to present, something on the lower end and something of the higher end of whatever that means for them. So again, in that example of someone that really needs that white glove delivery, that already low end option is going to be high end to some of my other clients. So looking at their priorities and then saying, I had a client recently, they just wanted a cheap additional little cabinet for storing their music books in their small music room that we did. It was a $200 cabinet on Amazon. So I had to say, I cannot vouch for the quality on this product yet. Fortunately, we can return it. And so I think too, exactly what you said, Brian, being their friend throughout that and kind of walking them through those worst case scenarios too. Worst case scenario, it arrives, you hate it, we return it and we'll figure it out and find another option. So I think just walking them through, and it continues to be a back and forth conversation. And I'll say too, they'll also often have priority rooms too, where we talk about that of, hey, I want this to be my piece that does last me 20 years. And then I also had clients recently, they had their grandkids room. And so they're like, these are just little twin beds. We'll probably have the grandkids, if we're lucky, twice a year. We don't want to spend as much on that room. So I think asking those questions, keeping the conversation open is what keeps expectations in check. So knock on wood, I've not had anyone furious with me at the end. So I'm proud of that.
Yes, I love those insights, Taylor. So many business strategic insights in what you just shared. Also options. That's also what I heard, is that ultimately you don't have to be the one that decides. And in fact, you're not deciding for your clients. You're presenting options to them and really showing them the pros and the cons, which makes me think of all the great technological things that are out there, Taylor, to help all of us, whether it's you as someone who's coming up with solutions or us as end consumers to help find decisions. I love Wayfair. I'm from Boston, so I'm very biased towards Boston-based companies, and I absolutely love Wayfair. They have so many affordable solutions that look really nice, but a lot of times what I struggle with, and I'm sure a lot of people do, is picturing things in their space. So Taylor, you called out software earlier on in our conversation. How much is technology affecting and impacting the type of work that you do?
So Brian, I would say the first kind of bit where technology really plays a role in my business is when I'm dimensioning a space. That was an area I didn't necessarily, when I started TLC Home, really think that this was going to be as immense a value as it is. But I saw very early on, I'd go into a client's home, their rug was half the size that it was supposed to be. So what I'm able to do, I use a software called Room Sketcher, which is absolutely available to the masses. You do not have to be a trained professional to use it. I myself learned much on YouTube, where I'm able to take the dimensions of a room and, show them, hey, this is how large of a sectional we can fit. Because sometimes too, they might have champagne dreams. They also have grandiose dreams of what can actually fit in their space. Of like, yes, we want one of those large U-shaped sectionals. I might have to tell them that it's not going to fit. And then I would say in terms of presentation, that's the most obvious way where I provide value to clients, of being able to show them, these are some of the existing finishes. If we are working with existing finishes, this is what's going to look good in terms of the colors that you like and your overall goals for this room. And I utilize Canva. It was something I feel like I touched on very briefly in college and had no idea. And it is now the backbone of my business.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love hearing those real life tech solutions, because you're right. I mean, it's more accessible than ever before is the cool thing. I mean, apps like the one that you mentioned, our iPhones are incredible measuring tools these days, and we've got all those things in our pocket. So I love how much you incorporate that with your clients. And even what I'm going to call out as a podcast host is even with potential clients, for listeners who are just like, Taylor, you just dropped some transparent value on us. Let me use that. And then it empowers them to work with somebody like you. So I love that approach. We're going to be dropping your links in just a few minutes. But before we get there, I want to squeeze two more questions in, Taylor. The first of which is, I want to switch gears and talk to you, the entrepreneur, not necessarily your subject matter expertise, but you as one of us, as a fellow entrepreneur. What are some of the most surprising things that have come from your entrepreneurial journey? Whether it's things that you had to be introspective and really do some personal development around and work your way through, or things about the entrepreneurial, the business, the strategic part itself. You come from a family of entrepreneurs, but I'm sure there are still things that with you being in it, you realize, oh, wow, I never realized this would be the case. What are some of those examples?
Yeah. So one it's not among the most professional of answers, but it's the honest truth. I think through one of my friends from high school. We were probably 15, and they would call me T. Lou, and he would just be like, T. Lou, fake it till you make it. And I even forget the context in which that was under, but it's sometimes something that I think about, where I might be going to a slab yard in a place that I've never expected to be, and needing to share my expertise. Again, being transparent with clients. Oh, I have not been here before, but we are going to figure it out and get you the look that you're looking for. And I would say the strategic side, I just made my first hire, which was an exciting milestone in the business. And that's such a scary step. As we've touched on, having studied economics, understood, that's how you scale a business. But it was scary to feel like I'm going to be paying someone else before I pay myself. Feels really scary and intimidating, but taking that leap of faith has felt important to me.
Yeah, I love those real life insights, and huge kudos and celebrations for you, Taylor. Your first hire is an incredible milestone and an inflection point, and so much of it you've displayed in real time for us here in today's episode. Is there's a lot of strategy and intention and thought that goes into these. So I love the way that you approach your business and your scalability and your growth, because it just means you're going to be able to serve more clients, which huge kudos to you, because you're doing great work. So with all of that in mind, you just dropped so much entrepreneurial knowledge on us that I don't know how you're going to top it for this final question, and that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and knowing that you're a fellow entrepreneur, what's that one thing that you want to leave them with today?
It's going to be a cliche, but it's just go for it. I really, again, when I now think back that I am now getting to do what I dreamed of doing as a child, it does feel like a pinch me moment every day. And I'm so glad I took the leap. It has come with its own set of challenges, fiscally, mentally, you name it, but absolutely been worth it. So 10 out of 10 recommend.
Yes, I love that advice. Hey, cliches are cliches for a reason. It's because they are rooted in truths, and I so appreciate you sharing that and reminding our listeners of that very important fact and that encouragement to just go for it. Well, Taylor, I know that listeners are going to be excited to check out your work. When it comes to interior design, talking about it is one thing, but seeing it is an entirely different thing. And on your website, I love how much you display your work. I will say, I love the variety of your testimonials and the types of work that you do, from someone saying, hey, Taylor, you built me a man cave that I always dreamed of. That's not the cliche bachelor pad. I think that it just shows the extent and the depth and variety of your skill set, as well as all the amazing pictures on there. You lay out all of your services so beautifully. So for listeners who want to see this stuff, having heard from you, drop those links on us. And one other thing I'll add in there, Taylor, is, are you working with people outside of the Charlotte area? You've got to answer that for us. So drop those links and share some more about how people can find you.
Absolutely. No, we work with clients all over. Our service model can look a little bit different, but we are happy to serve nationally and internationally, and also in Charlotte. You can find more about me at tlchomecharlotte.com or at Instagram at TLC Home by Taylor.
Yes, and listeners, you already know the drill. We're making it as easy as possible for you to find those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. You don't have to remember it. If you're on the go, if you're at the gym, if you're driving, no worries about scribbling it down. Just check the show notes. Those links will be there for you. So Taylor, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Brian.